The Antonov An-225 Mriya was a strategic airlift cargo aircraft designed in the 1980s by the Antonov Design Bureau in the Soviet Union. It was originally developed as an enlargement of the Antonov An-124 to transport Buran-class orbiters, and only one example was ever completed. After successfully fulfilling its military missions, the aircraft was mothballed for 8 years. It was then refurbished and reintroduced into commercial operation with Antonov Airlines, carrying oversized payloads. While a second airframe with a slightly different configuration was partially built, construction was halted more than once due to a lack of funding and interest. This second aircraft was last brought up to 60–70% completion in 2009. With a maximum takeoff weight of 640 tons, the An-225 held several records, including heaviest aircraft ever built and largest wingspan of any aircraft in operational service. The Mriya attracted a high degree of public interest, attaining a global following due to its size and its uniqueness. People frequently visited airports to see its scheduled arrivals and departures. The completed An-225 was destroyed in the Battle of Antonov Airport during the 2022 Russian invasion of Ukraine. Development. The Antonov An-225 was designed to airlift the Energiya rockets boosters and the Buran-class orbiters for the Soviet space program. It was developed as a replacement for the Myasishchev VMT. The An-225's original mission and objectives are almost identical to that of the United States shuttle carrier aircraft. The lead designer of the An-225 was Viktor Tolmachev. The An-225 first flew on December 21, 1988. It was on static display at the Paris Air Show in 1989, and it flew during the public days at the Farnborough Air Show in 1990. 2 aircraft were ordered, but only one An-225 was finished. It could carry ultra-heavy and oversized freight weighing up to 250,000 kilograms internally or 200,000 kilograms on the upper fuselage. Cargo on the upper fuselage can be 70 m long. A second An-225 was partially built during the late 1980s for the Soviet space program. Following the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991 and the cancellation of the Buran program, the lone operational An-225 was placed in storage in 1994. The 6 Ivchenko Progress engines were removed for use on An-124s, and the second uncompleted An-225 airframe was also stored. In the 1990s, a cargo liner bigger than the An-124 was clearly needed. The first An-225 was restored by 2001. By 2000, the need for additional An-225 capacity had become apparent, so the decision was made in September 2006 to complete the second An-225. That second airframe was scheduled for completion around 2008 but was subject to delays. By August 2009, the aircraft had not been completed and work had been abandoned. In May 2011, the Antonov CEO reportedly said that the completion of a second An-225 Mriya transport aircraft with a carrying capacity of 250 tons requires at least $300 million, but if the financing is provided, its completion could be achieved in 3 years. According to different sources, the second aircraft is 60–70% complete. Aerospace Industry Corporation of China's president, Zhang Yusheng, told a BBC reporter that AICC first contemplated cooperation with Antonov in 2009 and contacted them in 2011. AICC intends to modernize the second unfinished An-225 and develop it into an air-launch-to-orbit platform for commercial satellites at altitudes up to 12,000 m. The aviation media cast doubt on the production restart, indicating that due to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict, needed parts from Russia are unavailable, although they could be made in China instead. That project did not move forward, but UK Aerobran Prom, the parent company of Antonov, continues to seek partners to finish the second airframe. In April 2013, the Russian government announced plans to revive Soviet-era air launch projects that would use a purpose-built modification to the An-225 as a mid-air launchpad. On March 25, 2020, the freighter commenced a series of test flights from Hostomel Airport near Kyiv, after more than a year out of service, for the installation of a domestically designed power management and control system. Design. Based on Antonov's earlier An-124, the An-225 had fuselage barrel extensions added fore and aft of the wings. The wings also received root extensions to increase span. The wings are anhedral. The flight control surfaces are controlled via fly-by-wire and triple redundant hydraulics. 2 more Progress D18T turbofan engines were added to the new wing roots, bringing the total to 6. An increased capacity landing gear system with 32 wheels was designed, some of which are steerable, enabling the aircraft to turn within a 60-meter wide runway. Like its An-124 predecessor, the An-225 had a nose gear designed to kneel so cargo can be more easily loaded and unloaded. Unlike the An-124, which has a rear cargo door and ramp, the An-225 design left these off to save weight, and the empennage design was changed from a single vertical stabilizer to a twin tail with an oversized, swept-back horizontal stabilizer. The twin tail was essential to enable the plane to carry large, heavy external loads that would disturb the airflow around a conventional tail. Unlike the An-124, the An-225 was not intended for tactical airlifting and was not designed for short field operation. Initially, the An-225 had a maximum gross weight of 600 tons, but from 2000 to 2001, the aircraft underwent modifications at a cost of $20 million, such as the addition of a reinforced floor, which increased the maximum gross weight to 640 tons. Both the earlier and later takeoff weights establish the An-225 as the world's heaviest aircraft, heavier than the double-deck Airbus A380. Airbus claims to have improved upon the An-225's maximum landing weight by landing an A380 at 591.7 tons during testing. The An-225's pressurized cargo hold was 1,300 cubic meters in volume, 6.4 m wide, 4.4 m high, and 43.35 m long, longer than the first flight of the Wright Flyer. Operational history. The Antonov An-225 Mriya was originally operated from 1988 to 1991 as the prime method of transporting Buran-class orbiters for the Soviet space program. Antonov Airlines was concurrently founded in 1989 after it was set up as a holding company by the Antonov Design Bureau as a heavy airlift shipping corporation. This company was to be based in Kyiv, Ukraine, and operate from London Luton Airport in partnership with Airfoil Heavylift. While operations began with a fleet of 4 An-124-100s and 3 Antonov An-12s, the need for aircraft larger than the An-124 became apparent by the late 1990s. By this time, the Soviet Union was no longer in existence and the An-225 was sitting unused without a purpose. The An-225 was thus re-engined, modified for heavy cargo transport, and placed back in service under the management of Antonov Airlines. The An-225 became the workhorse of the Antonov Airlines fleet, transporting objects once thought impossible to move by air, such as 130-ton generators, wind turbine blades, a tank, and even diesel locomotives. It also became an asset to international relief organizations for its ability to quickly transport huge quantities of emergency supplies during multiple disaster relief operations. Under Antonov Airlines, the An-225 received its type certificate from the Interstate Aviation Committee Aviation Register on May 23, 2001. The type's first flight in commercial service departed from Stuttgart, Germany, on January 3, 2002, and flew to Thumrait, Oman, with 216,000 prepared meals for American military personnel based in the region. This vast number of ready meals was transported on 375 pallets and weighed 187.5 tons. The An-225 was later contracted by the Canadian and U.S. governments to transport military supplies to the Middle East in support of coalition forces. An example of the cost of shipping cargo by An-225 was over 2 million kr for flying a chimney duct from Billund, Denmark, to Kazakhstan in 2004. Antonov Airlines ceased cooperation with Airfoil and partnered with Volga Dnepr in 2006. This in turn led to the An-225's blue and yellow paint scheme, which was added in 2009. When the COVID-19 pandemic impacted the world in early 2020, the An-225 participated in the relief effort by conducting flights to deliver medical supplies from China to other parts of the world. The aircraft was popular with aviation enthusiasts, who frequently visited airports to view its scheduled arrivals and departures. Records. On August 11, 2009, the heaviest single cargo item ever sent by air was loaded onto the An-225. At 16.23 m long and 4.27 m wide, its consignment, a generator for a gas power plant in Armenia along with its loading frame, represented a payload of 189,980 kilograms. It also transported a total payload of 247,000 kilograms on a commercial flight. On September 11, 2001, carrying 4 main battle tanks at a record load of 253.82 tons of cargo, the An-225 flew at an altitude of up to 10,750 m over a closed circuit of 1,000 km at a speed of 763.2 km per hour. In 2017 the hired cost was $30,000 per hour. On June 11, 2010, the An-225 carried the world's longest piece of air cargo, 242.1 m test wind turbine blades from Tianjin, China, to Skridstrup, Denmark. On September 27, 2012, the An-225 hosted the highest altitude art exhibition in the world at 10,150 meters above sea level during the Aviasvit XX1 Aerospace Show at Antonov Airport. The exhibition was part of the Globus Gallery based in Kyiv and consisted of 500 artworks by 120 Ukrainian artists. Destruction. The aircraft's last commercial mission was from 2 to February 5, 2022. To collect almost 90 tons of COVID-19 test kits from Tianjin, China, and deliver them to Billund in Denmark, via Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. From there it returned on February 5 to its base at Antonov Airport in Hostomel, where it underwent an engine swap. On the advice of NATO it was prepared for evacuation, scheduled for the morning of February 24, but on that day Russia invaded, with the airfield being one of their first targets. A ban on civilian flights was quickly enacted by Ukrainian authorities. During the ensuing Battle of Antonov Airport, the runway was rendered unusable. On February 24, the An-225 was said to be intact. On February 27, a photo was posted on Twitter of an object tentatively identified as the An-225 on fire in its hangar. A report by the Ukrainian edition of Radio Liberty stated that the airplane was destroyed during the Battle of Antonov Airport, which was repeated by Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba and by Ukroboronprom, Antonov's parent organization. The Antonov company initially refused to confirm or deny the reports, and said it was still investigating them. Also on February 27, a press release by Ukroboronprom stated that the An-225 had been destroyed by Russian forces. Several other aircraft were in the same hangar as the An-225 at the time of its destruction, and were also destroyed or damaged during the battle. These include a Hungarian-registered Cessna 152, which was crushed by the An-225's left wingtip after the latter fell on top of it. Ukroboronprom said that they plan to rebuild the plane at the Russians' expense. The statement said, "The restoration is estimated to take over $3 billion in over 5 years. Our task is to ensure that these costs are covered by the Russian Federation, which has caused intentional damage to Ukraine's aviation and the air cargo sector." The Ukrainian government also said that it would be rebuilt. Aftermath. On March 1, a new photograph, taken since the initial conflict, was tentatively identified as the tail of the aircraft protruding from its hangar, suggesting that it remained at least partly intact. However, further evidence proved to show that the aircraft is inoperable due to the extreme damage it sustained. On March 3, a video circulated on social media, showing the aircraft burning inside the hangar alongside several Russian trucks, confirming its likely destruction. Nonetheless, Antonov stated again that until the aircraft is inspected by experts, its official status could not be fully known. On March 4, footage on Russian state television Channel 1 showed the first clear ground images of the destroyed aircraft, with much of the front section missing. Following Russia's withdrawal from northern Ukraine, the second unfinished aircraft airframe was reported to be intact, despite Russian artillery strikes on the hangar housing it at the Antonov factory at Svyatoshin airfield. Major Dmytro Antonov, the pilot of the An-225, alleged on March 19, 2022 that Antonov Airlines knew that an invasion was imminent for quite some time, but did nothing to prevent the loss of the aircraft. In his YouTube channel, he accused the management of the company of not doing enough to prevent the destruction of the aircraft, after having been advised by NATO to move the aircraft to Leipzig, Germany, in advance. Multiple Antonov staff have denied his allegations. On April 1, drone footage of Hostomel Airport showed the destroyed Mriya, with the forward fuselage completely burned and destroyed, but with the wings partly intact. Investigations into rebuilding the An-225 are being undertaken, including the possibilities of cannibalizing the second, incomplete An-225, or salvaging the remnants of the first plane to finish the second. However, there are several obstacles to rebuilding. Many of the aircraft's Soviet-made components were from the 1980s and are no longer made. Engineers quote a price of $350–500 million, although there is uncertainty regarding whether or not it would be commercially viable and worth the cost. However, Andriy Savenko, a former An-225 pilot and aviation author, said, "It's impossible to talk about the repair or restoration of this aircraft. We can only talk about the construction of another Mriya, using individual components that can be salvaged from the wreckage and combining them with those that were, back in the 1980s, intended for the construction of a second aircraft." On May 20, 2022, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced his intentions to complete the second An-225, to replace the destroyed aircraft and as a tribute to all the Ukrainian pilots killed during the war. In November 2022, Antonov confirmed plans to rebuild the aircraft at an estimated cost of $500 million. The company did not state whether parts from the wrecked aircraft and the incomplete airframe would be combined to create a new flying aircraft or where funding might come from. Former operators. Soviet Union Antonov Airlines for Soviet Buran program, the company passed to Ukraine after the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Ukraine Antonov Airlines for commercial operations from January 3, 2002, until February 24, 2022, the sole aircraft was destroyed during the Battle of Antonov Airport. Variants. An-224. Original proposal with a rear cargo door. Not built. An-225. Variant without the rear cargo door. 1 built, second aircraft incomplete. An-225-100. Designation applied to the An-225 after its 2000 modernization. Upgrades included a traffic collision avoidance system, improved communications and navigation equipment, and noise reduction features. An-325 proposed enlarged, 8-engine development, unbuilt. AX intended to carry the Tupolevu's air-launched to orbit space plane, a twin fuselage design consisting of 2 An-225 fuselages, with the OOS to be carried under the raised center wing. Multiple engine configurations were proposed, ranging from 18 Progress D18T turbofans to as many as 40 engines, with placements both above and below the wings. An alternative design for the AX was to use entirely new fuselages, each with a single tail. The AX was deemed unfeasible, and no prototypes were ever built. Specifications. Data from Vector Site, Antonov's heavy transports, and others. General characteristics. Crew, 6. Capacity, 253.820 tons. Length, 84 m. Wingspan, 88.4 m. Height, 18.1 m. Wing area, 905 square meters. Aspect ratio, 8.6. Empty weight, 285,000 kilograms. Max takeoff weight, 640,000 kilograms. Fuel capacity, more than 300,000 kilograms. Cargo hold, volume 1,300 cubic meters, 43.35 m long times 6.4 m wide times 4.4 m tall. Power plant, 6 times Progress D18T turbofans, 229.5 knots thrust each. Performance. Maximum speed, 850 km per hour. Cruise speed, 800 km per hour. Range, 15,400 km with maximum fuel, range with 200 tons payload, 4,000 km. Service ceiling, 11,000 m. Wing loading, 662.9 kg/m2. Thrust/weight, 0.234.